Hey, welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. In the series of pattern printing, so far we have seen so many patterns. In this video, we will see how we can actually print this particular pattern. So if we could carefully observe this pattern, we are starting with a number which is 5 in this case and going to the right side till here and coming to the left side like this, and 4 is starting in here and going in this diagonal way, and we don't have any 4 here, and we are starting with 4 here and going to the left side here. So like this we are having this pattern, and at last we are ended up with single one. Like this pattern is having. So in order to print this pattern, we will divide this whole pattern into two patterns, which is one here, this above pattern. Later we will print this particular below pattern. So by combining both of them, we can get the whole pattern. So let us go ahead and see how we can actually print this particular above pattern. So in order to print this particular pattern, I will use a rows here, and we have 5 rows, right? So 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. So for that reason, I will take the rows variable as 5. So if we could able to compare this particular pattern, here we are having these spaces, and after the spaces we are having these numbers. So first we need to print these spaces, then only we can get this particular pattern. So for that I will use a spaces variable, and I will assign with 0 because in the first row we don't have any space before these numbers. So later what I will be doing is that in order to generate these many number of rows, I will use a for loop for I in range. So now we need to generate a range of values, and the question is what are the range of values that we will be generating so that we can able to get all of these numbers. So in this pattern I will use this particular diagonal which is starting with 1 and going till the value of 5 here. So if you could able to print this particular diagonal, we can use this diagonal later in order to get all of these values. So for that reason I will start with 1 and go till row plus 1. So it will start at value 5. So in this, in order to know what values we are having in I will print the value I here. So now if I execute this, we can able to see the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is what we have expected. So if you carefully observe this particular pattern, in every single row, it was starting with value 5 and going till the value 1. So starting with 5, going till the 2. So these values are nothing but I values. You can compare in this particular I here. So we need to start with 5 and go till the value of I. So that is what is repeating in every single line. So when we have repeated statements, we generally go for loops, right? So for that reason, in this loop, I will use another loop for j in range. So now we will generate range of values. As we have discussed, it is starting with 5 and going till the value of I. So for that I will start rows which is the value 5 here. Rows and go till the value of I. So for that reason, I will mention I minus 1. So it will stop at the value I. So and on each iteration, it was reducing minus 1. So we can see in this pattern, these values are decreasing in row, right? So for that reason only, I am mentioning minus 1. So in this, instead of printing this particular I will print the value j here. So now if we execute this, we can able to see the values as 54321, 5432, 543, 54 and 5. So those are the exact values that we are having in this particular pattern. So now the only thing we need to do is that we need to arrange these values so that we can able to get the pattern. So for that reason, I will use an end in single space, because by default this print parameter having this print function having this end as new line. So for that reason we are getting everything in new line. If I execute this, we can able to get everything in a single line. So what we need to do is that as and when this for loop and this j value reaches to the value I, we need to print a new line. So for that, as and when this inner for loop got completion of its execution, I will print a simple print. So by default, this print is having end as new line so that we can able to get the new line. So now if I execute this, we can able to see the result as and when it reaches to the value I, we can able to get a new line. So you can, if you can remember the statement that what I have told previously, we need to print these spaces before printing these particular numbers here. So in order to print these spaces, as and when I enter into this outer for loop, I will use a space and I will multiply this space with the spaces variable, because by using this spaces variable, we are keep tracking of these spaces, right? So for that reason, I am mentioning like this, and I will use end as nothing, because if you don't use this statement, by default end is having new line so that it will go to the new line. So after completion of this, as and when the completion of this inner for loop, we need to do some modification to spaces, because in this pattern, every single line after completion of this line, a single space is increasing. You can see in this pattern, the spaces are keeps increasing on every single line. So for that reason, we need to do some modification to the spaces. So for that, as and when we have completed this particular inner for loop, I will increase the spaces to 1 so that we can able to get this particular pattern. So now if I execute this, so we can able to see the result like this. So now we have achieved the above pattern. So far, if you found this video interesting, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. So let us go ahead and see how we can actually get this particular below pattern as well. So in order to get this below pattern, we will follow the similar procedure what we have followed for the above pattern. So for that, what I will do is that I will use a for loop in order to generate this many number of rows here. For k in range, so I am using this range in order to generate a range of values. So what are the range of values that we are generating in here is that, as we have generated this particular diagonal as a base to generate all of these numbers, we will use this diagonal, which is 4321, to generate all of these values. So as I have mentioned, I will start with 4, which is nothing but rows minus 1, right? So rows is having 5, rows minus 1, which results 4. So after that, we need to go till the value 1. So for that reason, I will mention 0, and we are decreasing the numbers. For that reason, I am mentioning minus 1. So in this for loop, in order to know what values we are having in k, I will just print the value k here. If I execute this, we can able to see the values of k, which is 4321. Those are exact value that what we have expected. So the only thing we need to do is that by using this k, we need to generate all of these values. So if you could compare this pattern and this k values, we can able to observe that in every single row, these are starting with 5 and going till the value of k here. Starting with 5, going till k, and starting with 5, going to k. Like this in every single row, starting with 5, going till the value of k. So these are repeating statements, right? So as we have discussed, when we have repeated statements, we go for loops. So for that reason, in this for loop, I will use one more for loop, L in range. So now we will generate a range of values. As we have discussed, need to be start with 5 and go till the value of k. So for that reason, I will start with rows minus 1, not rows minus 1, but exactly rows, which is 5, and go till the value of k. For that reason, I will mention k minus 1 so that it will stop at the value k. So we are increasing the values, right, in row. For that reason, I am mentioning minus 1. So here, instead of printing this particular k, if I print the value L here, and if I execute this, so we can able to get the result as 54, 543, 5432, and 54321. So those are the exact values that we are having in this particular pattern. So now if we could arrange these values, we can get the below pattern and we can get the whole pattern. So for that reason, I will mention an end here, a single space as we have did the above, And also after completion of this inner for loop, I will use a print in order to generate a new line after once it reaches to the value k. So now if I execute this, we can able to get the result like this. So now, as we have discussed, we are having spaces before this pattern, right? So we first need to print these spaces. So for that reason, as and when we enter into this outer for loop, I will use a print to print spaces, and I will multiply this space with spaces variable, and I will mention end as nothing. So if you could compare this particular pattern, these spaces are reducing by going to the new line, right? So for that reason, as and when we complete this for loop, inner for loop, I will modify spaces -1. So after every iteration, the spaces will be reduced by -1. So now if I execute this, we can able to get this pattern which is not what we have expected, right? So the reason is that this spaces for above pattern and this spaces for below pattern is the same, and the value present in these particular spaces are affecting this particular row, and that leads to every single row here. So in order to know what value we are having in spaces, we just print spaces here. So if you print spaces, we are getting the value 5 here. But if you could compare this first row in below pattern, which is this, we can able to see the spaces as 1, 2, 3, and we only have 3 spaces in below pattern. So the difference between 5 and 3 is 2, right? So we need to decrease these spaces by 2 so that we can able to get the spaces. So now if I execute this, so we can able to get the exact pattern that is what we have expected. So starting with 5 and going in this direction and coming in this direction, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we have every single number and we have got the exact pattern. So I hope you can able to understand this logic to generate this particular pattern. And let us, if you found any difficulty while understanding this logic, I sincerely suggest you to watch the video once again carefully so that you can able to understand the logic clearly, so you can able to print the pattern. So now what we will be doing is that we will dynamically take input from the user and print the pattern accordingly. So for that I am using enter rows. If I execute this, so it was asking to enter rows. I am using 7 here. So we can able to see the result starting with 7, and all the other values we are getting keep reducing, and we are stopping at 1. So if I give, let's say, one more number, let's say I am giving 4 here. So still we can able to get this pattern. So by using this logic, any number given by the user, we can able to get the pattern. So I hope you have understood this logic, and I hope you have found this video interesting. If that is true, hit the like button. In the next video, we will see how we can print this particular pattern. So this pattern and the previous pattern that what we have printed now almost similar, but the change is that it was quite mirror image, like starting with 1 here and going till the highest value, which is 5 in this. So like that we are having this pattern. In the next video we will see how we can print this particular pattern. So to stay updated, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications to all, so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next.